Hi, welcome, Geekella here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at 4 new colors of Daniel Smith paint that I just picked up. Picked up 4 colors that I've seen recommended to hopefully round out my palette. The colors are Lunar Earth, Payne's Gray, Lavender, and Buff Titanium. So I did get big ones of Payne's Gray and Lunar Earth. I knew that those would be colors that I'd more likely use in larger quantities. And then I did get the 5 milliliter of Lavender and Buff Titanium, just because I wasn't sure how much I would use these colors, so I wanted to kind of get a smaller one to test out. Oh, I do already own Payne's Gray. I have it from Winsor & Newton Cotman. Trying to find that on my palette. My palette is a little disorganized at the moment. I don't really have the colors in order. So I do have this palette here with 3 empty slots. So I will be replacing the old Payne's Gray with the new one if I like it, which I'm sure I will probably like the Payne's Gray from Daniel Smith better. Here's Payne's Gray from Winsor & Newton, which is a very nice color, one of my favorites. So I wanted to upgrade to Daniel Smith as kind of professional color. So let's go ahead and put these in some containers to go in the palette, and then we're going to swatch them and test them out. I will also compare the Daniel Smith Payne's Gray to the Winsor & Newton Cotman Payne's Gray. This one is more of a student quality paint. So we will compare that to Daniel Smith, which is, more of a professional quality. So let's go ahead and use out our Lunar Earth. I do have the Lunar Blue, already making a mess. I do have the Lunar Blue color, and I'm quite a fan of the lunar colors that I've tried. And I wanted another nice brown color. This does look like quite a warm brown, so we'll test out and see how that goes. In the effort of not wasting paint, let's go ahead and test it out just what, ended up on my finger. These were just delivered, and it is quite hot here in Florida, so I think that the heat has kind of made them a little explodey. That's one thing that I don't really like about the Daniel Smith paints, is they tend to kind of squeeze out. I don't know if that is from living in a warm climate, but let's go ahead and test this out. And we'll get a nice thick amount. So I'm just going to kind of put some onto palette. Just add a little bit of water to get my favorite kind of tea consistency with the paint. And this is a very solid color. It's looking like it's very opaque. Watered down. We do see that transparency. I'm not sure of the granulation of this Lunar Earth. I don't think it has granulation. I'm not entirely sure. We'll kind of see what happens. It does actually look like it is granulating quite a bit. We'll see. I kind of bought this one a little bit on a whim. I saw another artist using it in a video and wanted to try it out. Alright, let's hope none of the other colors explode quite as much. Let's try Payne's Gray. I'm going to open it very carefully this time. Nice, rich, dark color. This is my favorite darkest dark to use. I do own it as I said, the Winsor & Newton Cotman. I do have it in a couple of other palettes. I believe that my Winsor & Newton Cotman tins also contain Payne's Gray. So I do, and I also have it from Peerless Watercolors in the watercolor dry sheet. So I do already have Payne's Gray. I'm familiar with the color, but first time using like a very high quality version of it. Some Payne's Gray are very blue. Some are a little bit more kind of neutral. This one looks like it does have that blue tint that I love. And there we go. There is Payne's Gray from Daniel Smith. Just for some comparison, let's do a color comparison for the Winsor & Newton. Now, I do enjoy mixing my own Payne's Gray as well. Burnt Sienna and French Ultramarine make a nice Payne's Gray. But it is very convenient to have the tube of it already mixed up. Now, it looks like these are quite similar colors. You can almost see that the one from Daniel Smith almost looks a little bit more cool toned. I don't know if I did just a darker swatch here with the Cotman. It's kind of hard to tell. It does look like I'm quite liking the Daniel Smith one better just for the tone. This one is almost a little more neutral. And the Daniel Smith one does have that nice blue I like from a Payne's Gray. Now I wanted a couple of lighter colors, and I watched a video with someone testing out lavender and buff titanium as a mixer color, or each of those as mixer colors. So I went ahead and picked those up. Whew, lavender's squeezing out a little bit, kind of volcanoing here, but lavender looks like just such a nice, beautiful, lighter color to have. I believe it's a little bit of a chalkier color from what I have seen. It's not quite as transparent. I still have Lunar Earth all over me. So let's go ahead and test out this lavender. And we are using these straight from the tube, so they are going to be quite vibrant from the tube versus when I go to use them again from my palette. So there is lavender. I think I still had, my brush was a little bit dirty. We might try that again. Let me make sure I completely clean my brush, because I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a gray cast on that lavender there at the bottom. This ended up being quite a wet wash. We'll kind of see how this color cooperates. I tend to not like the chalkier colors. One of my favorites, though I don't really like its chalkiness, I do love the color Aussie Red Gold. I do feel like sometimes this one is a little bit chalky, so I'm curious if this lavender will be like that. It does look like it is drying quite nice. I do like that color quite a lot. This will be a nice versatile color, and it does make an excellent mixing color. Now I know I'm going to want an extra clean brush for buff titanium. I do not typically use white in my watercolor. I do have some white gouache that I use occasionally for accents. Ugh, this one's also very messy. But I don't typically use a lot of it. I did see an artist use buff titanium again as a nice mixing color, and I'm interested to see how that works. Let's try to clean some of this up. Again, I think it's the heat caused these tubes to be a little high pressure. But what's art without a little messiness? We'll go ahead and cap this before it explodes anymore. And I know that, as I said, this one is not, you know, the most visible color on its own. But as a mixing color, it is quite versatile. I also think that it's quite a chalky, more opaque color from what I have seen from other artists. So there is our buff titanium. Now I'm just kind of interested in how that buff titanium mixes, so let's do a little experiment. I'm just going to try mixing some straight on the paper. Let's try mixing buff titanium and lavender. And I think that buff titanium is a nice neutralizer. We're getting like a nice, cool, light gray color from the buff titanium and the lavender mixed together. Let's try another color. I'm going to pop down my buff titanium and let's go in with a little Lunar Earth. Add a little bit more buff titanium just to kind of see what that's doing. Again, I really like the way it's almost kind of muting it a little bit, giving it a nice overcast day palette versus the pure Lunar Earth. Let's try it with a green. I do like this Viridian from, this is a Holbein. It is really vibrant. So I'm going to try this Viridian with that buff titanium as well. And this is a dried color from my palette. I'm liking that quite a lot. It's a much nicer, a little bit more realistic of the Viridian, just to give a what Viridian looks like on its own. It's quite bright. And let's try one more. Another one that I don't use a whole lot in my palette is this Holbein Crimson Lake, because again, it's very, very vivid, bright red. Very cool toned red. So this one I don't use quite as much. So let's see what happens with that one mixed with our buff titanium. I already had a little bit on my brush. This isn't the most scientific experiment because I'm not doing the best job cleaning my brush. And that is a really nice, more earthy pink. I can definitely see using that for any sort of landscape with florals that are a little bit more muted in tone. And you can see that these are quite opaque colors. So that buff titanium would be great when we really want that more opaque look to our watercolors. So here are those 4 new colors. We have the Daniel Smith Lunar Earth, the Daniel Smith Payne's Gray. It looks like the Lunar Earth is quite granulating. Payne's Gray has some watermark here, but not quite as granulating. And our Lavender and our buff titanium are a little bit more opaque and not granulating. So I think I'm going to have fun testing out these colors in future paintings.